Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to call you in from New York, and the weather is actually quite nice here. And I'm also bringing some good news. It's end of the day for you in Italy. So the good news I want to share with you is that despite all the kind of rather gloomy news that we're hearing these days, there is some good news. And the good news is that there's a new economic system that is arising that I call the frugal economy that I want to talk about in the next 15 minutes. We all knew that for a long time that the capitalist economic system is dysfunctional. This is a system that is measured by purely GDP growth, and we know the system is not working because it excludes people, leading to inequality, and it exploits our natural resources, leading to climate change. So this year we have a major opportunity to reset, reboot, and reinvent our economy. And this new economy is what I call a frugal economy. And I published an article in MIT Sloan Management Review that you can read to go deeper into that. But today, in the limited time we have, I want to introduce you to the three major components of this new economy that is arising, which really focuses on, and we heard throughout the day, is how do we live better and be better with less. And this new economy is actually built by what I call value and values conscious consumers and citizens. And this frugal economy will rest on three pillars, namely B2B sharing, business to business sharing, distributed or hyper-local supply chains, and finally, triple regeneration. So I'm going to go into each of these three components. First, business to business sharing. What is it? Well, today, you and I, as consumers, share cars and apartments, like with Airbnb. This is the business to consumer sharing economy that is expected to become a $335 billion market in the next few years. But imagine what happens if companies start sharing their resources with each other. We will see the rise of a B2B sharing economy that could be worth trillions of dollars. And excitingly, this new B2B sharing is already happening as companies begin to share waste with each other, which is the case in Denmark, where 12 companies co-located in the Kalundborg Industrial Park share their waste, resources, and information with each other as an integrated network. This is called industrial symbiosis. You can also think about, as a company, sharing your physical assets like equipment and facilities with other companies. For instance, in Netherlands, there is a platform called Flow2, which enables, for instance, hospitals to share the equipment with each other. So during COVID, if you want to run some test on a patient and your X-ray device is busy, you can send the patient quickly to another clinic, maybe in a smaller town, to get them checked. And of course, you can go one step further and think about what if companies start sharing employees with each other? And interestingly, during COVID, Accenture set up an interesting employer-to-employer platform that allows employees laid off in one company to quickly find a job with another company. This is called People and Work Connect. So you can see how we can actually get companies to share different resources with each other. That's the first pillar. The second pillar is what I call distributed or hyper-local supply chains. So far, before COVID, we had centralized global supply chains with big factories in China producing standard products and then shipping them in containers all over the world. And this kind of centralized supply chain, we know today, are vulnerable, they are not very flexible, and they are very polluting and resource intensive. Instead of that, what we see rising is what I call distributed hyperlocal supply chains, where production units can get closer and closer to consumption points. And this we saw specifically during the crisis, and Italy actually has proved that to the world very well. In the Lombardy region in Italy, in March, they had a shortage of ventilators because the region was, deeply affected by the pandemic with the many patients infected. And rather than panic, the doctors and entrepreneurs in the region were very resourceful. They looked around and figured out how to repurpose existing resources to save lives of patients. For instance, they used 3D printing technology to adapt the scuba diving mask from Decathlon and adapted them to be used as ventilators by patients, saving thousands of lives in the process. And for this amazing innovation made with very limited resources, local resources, Dr. Favero and Oliver Fracassi got a prestigious award, civilian award from the Italian president. And this kind of decentralization can be applied to energy as well. For instance, we are seeing now remote communities affected by cyclones in South Asia relying on solar energy microgrids. They are off the grid. They're not connected to the main electric grid, and they are self-sufficient, generating energy and keep the power on when everything else is shut off. And similarly, wildfires are raging in California, as you know, and yet in the Native American reserve of Lake Rancheria in California, they use a solar microgrid to become energy efficient by producing locally the energy being consumed locally as well. And we see cities now encouraging local production as well, with Paris with the concept of the city of 15 minutes, or Melbourne in Australia promoting the concept of 20-minute neighborhoods. That means that you can access all the goods and basic services you need within a 20-minute radius from where you live. So this is the second pillar, which is decentralizing, distributing production and bringing it closer to where the customers live and the citizens live. And this is good for the local communities and it's good for the planet as well. And now finally, we come to the third pillar, which is related to the theme of this conference, which is what I call not just regeneration, but triple regeneration. Let me explain what it is. First of all, regeneration is becoming a hot concept, and I applaud the organizers for hosting this very important and timely event. Indeed, according to a major survey done in America, 80% consumers prefer the term regeneration to sustainability because they believe that sustainability is too passive as a term. So that's why many companies now are trying to become not just sustainable, but regenerative. Like Interface, which is a major carpet company, which has built in Australia what they call factory as a forest. This is a factory that not only pollutes less or generates no waste, it goes beyond that. It actually generates 20 positive ecosystemic services that are offered generously like nature does to the surrounding environment. Things like fresh water or clean energy generated as a byproduct of the production process. So this is an example of a regenerative business. But what I am interested is this notion of triple regeneration, where we can create a holistic, integrated strategy that at the same time, simultaneously, revitalizes people, places, and the planet. Let me give you two examples of companies that are practicing triple regeneration. The British retailer Marks and Spencer has something called Plan A 2025. By 2025, they are engaged, they are committed to improving the lives of 10 million people, improving their well-being, the health of 10 million people. And they also want to help transform positively 1,000 communities in England and in Europe. And finally, they want to regenerate the planet by becoming a zero waste, zero carbon company as well. So this is an example of, triple regeneration: people, places, and planet. Likewise, Danone, a major food company, is investing in regenerative agriculture, which aims to enrich the soil, enhance the biodiversity, and improve animal welfare. And at the same time, it can do sequestration of carbon in the soil as well. All this leads to better yield, which is good for the farmers who can earn more money, and it increases the long-term value of the land as well. And of course, a better quality soil produces more nutritious food, which improves the health of us consumers as well. So it regenerates people, communities, and the planet at the same time. But the one that I want to touch upon is human regeneration. Because, for instance, in Italy, we have this company called Fiam, which is a high-end glass furniture company. And they actually collected the waste of glass from their furnaces in the factories, and they gave them to up-and-coming young designers so they can upcycle them, regenerate them into beautiful new furniture items, and they became overnight celebrities. So for me, regeneration ultimately is about making sure that we don't waste the most precious resource, which is human talent. And I want to conclude with an inspiring case study, which is focused on regenerative community. And this is Lausanne, which is a small town in northern France, which it's a mining town. And because of deindustrialization, they suffered from two problems. They had very high unemployment, and they suffered from health and ecological issues as well. Their mayor, Jean-François Caron, who I consider as a twin brother, we get along really well, actually came to power 20 years ago. And the first thing he did was, like Parma, he registered the city as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Because you see, unless you honor your past, you cannot reinvent your future. So after doing that, he humbly, with great humility, asked his citizens, look, I don't have all the answers. Can you help me transition the city, which is one of the most polluted cities in the world, into a regenerative city? Everybody contributed, beginning with the church. The church became the first to set up solar panels on the roof. And then the schools set up solar panels as well. And then the farmers switched to local organic farming so that they can locally source high quality food items for canteens and citizens as well. And finally, they set up a green startups incubator, Europe's first, right next to the spoil heaps, right? These mountains that actually represent, the old exploitative economy. They wanted to show how a city can reinvent itself from this very exploitative, economy to a regenerative economy. And the French president visited this place in November 2018. And the reason he went there symbolically is to send a message to all European towns that are going to suffer during this crisis, to let them understand that, yes, there will be a shortage of tangible resources like public funds, jobs will get scarce, energy, water, these physical resources will be scarce during a crisis. And when the external resources get scarce, you need to go within yourself and tap into abundant, intangible resources like ingenuity, empathy, resilience, social capital, traditional knowledge, which are abundantly available in your local community, and ingeniously use them to address the scarcity of these tangible resources. And I think that's, for me, the real message here is how do we do better and live better with less? And so in summary, I would say that the recession this year is actually a great thing that ever happened in human history, because it's going to allow us to pave the way for a new inclusive and regenerative economy that I call the frugal economy, that is built on business-to-business sharing, distributed supply chains, and triple regeneration. And to learn more about that, you can read my book on Frugal Innovation and read the article in MIT Sloan Review as well. I'm sorry that I have to go very quickly. But you can send me an email and we'll be happy to address your questions. Thank you very much.